Here to look at the week that's been and what's coming next is Fox Nation host and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Tammy, thanks so much for joining us here on the U.S. Report. Now, have a look at this.
And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
Tammy, it's your first time here on the U.S. Report. Can you please tell us what is going on? The president has COVID. He said he had cancer. The White House has walked that back. Who are we to believe?
Well, that's the problem. American people, of course, are asking the same question. What we do know is that there are so many strange remarks from the president that something is wrong. That is established, right? And he has a history. This is nothing new. Right, he was caught plagiarizing a speech which derailed one of his presidential campaigns decades ago. And he has a history of saying things that are just not true. Here we call it being a fabulist, which is not just exaggerating things, but adding stuff on to give yourself kind of a sense of bravado or charisma or an attempt to place yourself almost like Zelig in some kind of every event that's ever happened. And it comes from a lack of self-esteem and also from perhaps a desire to manipulate. But the American people have seen this from him for 50 years. This is just, he's not as smooth with it these days. So we don't really know what's going on. Not only don't we know what's going on with Joe Biden, but we don't know who's running the country. We know that there is a collective of people who are nameless and faceless. Perhaps it's Ron Klain, who's his chief of staff, and Susan Rice, who heads his Domestic Policy Council, which obviously should be trying to hide in the hills at this point, considering what the domestic situation is. So we don't know who's running the country. We don't really know where they stand on issues. The American people are tired of being treated like crows, as though we're going to be distracted by every shiny thing. But because we do have an experience every day with inflation, with crime, with wondering about the future. Every single day you go to the store, you go to the gas station, and we have real life experiences that aren't going to be obscured by the strange things that Joe Biden says.
Tammy, it's very disturbing, I agree. But I want to move on to the Middle East, where congressional Democrats have blocked a series of measures targeting the Iran regime, even as Joe Biden signaled that the U.S. would use force to stop Tehran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Now, it seems curious to me, given that a nuclear program and a nuclear weapon was always going to be the end result of an Iran deal, which the Obama administration was all about, and now the Biden administration as well. Talk our viewers through just what's happening with how confused this all is.
Well, you know, of course, in the middle there was President Trump, who stopped that deal because what it allowed Iran to do, as you've said, eventually it allowed them to really get the bomb over a period of time. It was a very strange arrangement that even Europe was, not sure about in a certain way, that everybody wanted the money that could come from Iran, the oil that could come from Iran. The Russians in particular, of course, wanted them to be able to do what they wanted to do. The French were involved. I mean, there's obviously a whole history of Europe and Asia in that part of the world. So everyone had a different interest in what Iran can do. We had Obama sending pallets of cash in multiple different currencies to the Iranians. We know that our State Department designates that nation as an official sponsor of terrorism. We know that they have death squads still operating, of course, in the Middle East and even in South America, Hamas and Hezbollah. So this is not a surprise. Iran says that they can make the bomb now. And, of course, they have a relationship with North Korea. The reason why Joe Biden can say things and have it not have an impact is everyone thinks about Afghanistan. Joe Biden said a lot of things about Afghanistan as well. And he abandoned that country, leaving, $85 billion worth of military equipment, abandoning Americans, our own people, our allies who helped us there. Women are now being thrown to the curb. We're constantly being told about over-the-horizon strikes on ISIS-K and on if the Taliban did anything bad. There's been no over-the-horizon strikes on Afghanistan. So whenever Joe Biden says something tough about foreign policy, everybody laughs. The Saudis were laughing when he visited them. So everybody knows the lights are out at the White House. Everybody knows that the president has fallen off his bike and that there is no American leadership. And it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but with mass murderers and terrorists. Daddy's not home. They're going to do what they want to do. And this is why this nation and the world is in such a precarious place. And Americans, as a result, are going to react in the election coming up. And the Iranians and the Middle East, look, Israel is once again probably going to have to be the entity, the great nation that is going to stop a menace for the world. And I think that Israel is going to have to be the one that deals with it until we get an American president who can take charge.
Tammy, I think you're right. Israel's done it before. They'll do it again. Now, just very quickly, I want to talk about New York, my old hometown, where the far-left socialist former mayor, Bill de Blasio, has dropped his bid for a congressional seat. I guess after ruining the city, no one wanted to give him a chance to screw up the nation, hey?
Yeah, you know, even when, remember, he ran for president for like a second, and nobody wanted him. He like dropped out. He got like less than 1% in the polls. There's a weird mentality that happens with these Democrats. They think the more destruction they apply, the more they deserve a promotion. You know, it's the cocktail parties they go to. It's the people they hang out with that say, oh, you should run for president or you should run for Congress. They're so completely disconnected from the American people, from their own constituencies. So he announced he was running for this new district that was carved out in New York City. And he announced, oh, I'm pulling away. I'm not going to be doing it. It's because the polls were once again, he was non-existent. Nobody wants him. And I've been saying this now for quite some time. The left has to realize no one wants what they're selling. We don't want them. We don't want their ideas. We see what they've been implementing. It destroys lives. And yet they're running around thinking, and this is the danger that they pose, that, you know, they're not affected by the critique. They're not affected by the end result. They're not affected by their own failure like every other normal person would be. You know, if you fail at something, you think, oh, maybe I should do something else for a living. But not these people, because these people want the chaos. That is what they want. They figure they can continually gaslight, manipulate, brainwash people. And I think they're becoming more and more surprised here and on this side of the globe, on the other side of the globe, that people everywhere are tired of being treated like infants. They're tired of totalitarian governments. They're tired of a government that tells them what to do, managing every aspect of their lives, when it's those people who have no idea what life is like. And so this is the American attitude at the moment. It certainly is the attitude, I think, in growing in Europe. And we're going to see where this ends up, because the midterms in America are going to send a message far and wide to everyone around the world.
Fox News' Tammy Bruce, thank you so much for your time tonight.